think there's like a $2 billion industry of like social media sellers.
The worst advice that you could have received, like, and what's an example of that for you?
Like small businesses, it's not just about, oh, you're helping a corporation get bigger. It's like you are seeing the person you get to help.
I'll say something from the venture capital space, right? The environment there is hockey stick or die.
Tech can do so much for them, but like no one really cares to build for them.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for joining us here on the Caravan podcast today.
Well, walaikum salam.
How's it going, Hamza?
I'm doing great.
You're not going to greet us?
Walaikum assalam.
Well, we're really excited to have you here. This is us visiting from Dallas, Texas, here in New York. So your home turf, because you grew up here, more or less.
I did, yes. I moved here from Bangladesh when I was 1.5 years old. Moved to Queens and stayed here. I've been in New York since. Did go to SF for 2 years, but otherwise I've spent my entire life in New York.
Oh my goodness, through and through.
Through and through.
So you are the founder of LemonJuice, which we're really excited to hear more about. But obviously there is a story before finding a company. And so we're really excited to see how that journey goes. So with that being said, growing in New York is very difficult, at least what we've been told. And it has its challenges. Now, of course, you had mentioned that you immigrated here from Bangladesh at a very young age. Yeah. Now, was your family moving back? Like, did your dad do school here, or your family do school here, and then go to Bangladesh? Like, or was it all new for y'all?
It was all new for us. A few of my uncles, my mom's brothers, and my dad's brothers had moved here before, but we moved here. It was me, my dad, my older sister, and my mom for the first time. What was that, like 1996? But it was completely new. We moved into a home in Elmhurst, Queens. We lived with my other cousins. So there was like at one point, like 14 of us in one like 3-bedroom home. But we grew up 14 of us.
Oh my goodness.
My dad's brother and his wife and 2 kids. My mom, us, I have 3 other sisters. There was 4 of us. 2 my parents, and then my dad's 2 brothers, and then at some point like my grandparents would come. But
now are you the eldest?
No, I'm the second. I'm a middle child.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
So you're
number 2.
You're the delegator. You're the peacemaker. No.
No, I'm very much a middle child.
Okay.
Like in every way. I don't think I'm a delegator or a peacemaker, but yeah, I think I fall in between like being the eldest sometimes and also being like the youngest.
Okay, so you just kind of
float. Yes, exactly.
So you have one older sister, and then how many younger siblings?
2 younger sisters.
2 younger sisters.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Wow. It's so living in that busy of a household. I mean, we're from Texas, right? Yeah. So we're not really placed into those situations just because of the real estate of the land.
Of course.
How was that growing up, or was it just the norm?
I think within my family it was the norm because a lot of people had moved to America for the first time without like having any sort of like background or having any sort of experience. But there was challenges obviously that came with like not having space. But growing up in that sort of community, you were always surrounded by love, and like obviously there was challenges between like us as like siblings and like family members. But otherwise, like I think I grew up with a lot of love. I grew up like constantly having to figure out like, okay, like how do you like get along with this person? How do you get along with that person? And so it developed like a very early skill set into just like being okay with being surrounded by people and finding your peace, like without having to go anywhere, but just like learning how to like live with so many people.
Was there a lot of pressure growing up from your family, even being a middle child? You're still on the older side of things here, but setting examples or expectations, like what was it like navigating that in such tight spaces?
I think, I mean, obviously there was expectations. I think the most important thing for my parents always was just like education, like get into the best school, get the best grades. My parents were never strict about like, oh, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer. It was just like, go to a good school, get a good job that's something that you enjoy. And that was kind of it. But I think as an older sibling, I also have like I don't know how many cousins, many younger cousins. Both my parents have 8 siblings, so you can
Your
imagine.
parents had 8 siblings. Yeah, I think
each of them.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of younger cousins, and I think there was always like a natural inclination to like kind of be a good example in whatever way I could for my cousins and my younger sisters. But yeah.
I feel like growing up in that type of environment where you just have family surrounded with you at all times. I know obviously, I'm sure there's some challenges, but at the same time, it's like coming home to like a full house of just like, there's always someone to talk to.
Yeah.
You're probably always mad at someone too. So it just sounds like a fun environment, but I also think that there's so many like experiences in relationships, how to manage those expectations, how to have conversations.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
100%. Like, I think that those like early stage experiences were something that like I don't feel like I have issues with like figuring out how to get along with X person or Y person. Like, I think in the workplace and startup and whatever like situation I've been in, one skill that I've always had is like being able to like manage different personalities and being fine with like, oh, this person is just this way, and like figuring out a way around it. So I think that was just because of my early experiences growing up in that.
So when it comes to like having examples and setting that, I mean, you obviously went to Columbia, which is a very, I mean, Allah Mubarak, an incredible school to go to and more or less get into. Was that always the North Star for you, is to go there, or was there other opportunities to go elsewhere?
My North Star was always Columbia. For clarification, like I went to Barnard College, which is the Women's College of Columbia. The degree is the same, but there is like a little bit of a distinction there. I wanted to stay in New York. I love New York. I never wanted to leave. I'm not going to lie that I applied to all the other Ivies, but Columbia was always my North Star because I was like, I want to stay in New York. I loved the campus. I wanted to be closer to home, but I also wanted to dorm and like have that experience. And so, yeah, it was always a North Star. And when I got in, it was just like amazing.
Was staying at home something that your cousins or your other siblings have never done, like in terms of going away for school? Or was that kind of expected?
At the time, I was the first person to dorm, but that's because I'm like part of the older generation of cousins. Now more people have done it, and it was like a big thing. Like my parents were very much like, I think it was a thing in my family, like, oh, she's gonna dorm. But I think my parents, again, like education was the most important thing, and they were like, this is not like some like, it's a good school. Like, why would we not let her do that? And so it wasn't really like that big of a question. It was just good. She made it here, so we're gonna let her do it.
So going into college, what were you really aiming to become?
Okay, so like every other South Asian person, I at some point wanted to be a doctor. Okay. So I was like, my parents never forced it on me. It was just something that I was like, oh, that's something I want to do.
It's character development.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Do it for the plot.
And so senior year of high school, I was actually in this program called Virtual Enterprise. It's this like nationwide program where the class is you and all the other students in the class, you basically like start a virtual business. And it's, you like do trade shows, you start doing, I was a COO of that business. And I was like, I love this. Like, I love being a part of a business. I didn't know what it meant, but I was just like, I want to do something in like finance or business, but I don't want to be a doctor anymore. And so when I got into Barnard or Columbia, I wanted to do something that would lead me into closer to that. And so economics was the closest thing to it. Took a couple of classes and I thought I was going to end up in finance. Did a bunch of internships in finance and then ended up in tech. So.
Well, what type of internships did you do that were in the economic space? Like
finance. So most of them were in finance. When I first started, for me, like having a part-time job was always something that was like I needed to do. And so being in New York was amazing because you have access to so many like paid internships. So my first ever internship was at a PR firm, which I really enjoyed. Then I did an internship at the Columbia Business School, helping small businesses with the Small Business Development Center. And that was like essentially like helping small businesses get set up and like figure out how to use statewide resources to grow. Then I did a wealth management internship at Merrill Lynch. Then sales at PIMCO, which is a equity research fund. And then I did equity research at a hedge fund. So
I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's
I was like very much like in the internship space.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
I was like,
Okay,
let me give you my resume.
No, but I think all that, because it's not the same. You have a little bit of differences in each one of these experiences. Yeah. And so like, what was kind of driving the decisions of kind of doing some of those different industry verticals? Or was it that you were still trying to kind of figure out the lay of the land?
A little bit of both. practically speaking, it was always like, okay, where is the money? And
Yeah,
a lot of these
understood.
internships paid really well. I cared, I think when I was at that stage, I cared a lot about prestige. And I did feel like at some point I was just like chasing the next big name. So it was a little bit of that. And then I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. Like going to that school was when I first like had exposure into a lot of these industries. And so I kind of wanted to test everything out and see what I was good at. So it was a little bit of all of that.
Would you say that, looking back, would you say that you kind of agreed with that approach of like, hey, where can I like build my resume with the biggest name? Or would you say that if you could talk to your former self, is that something that you would like give a different form of advice for yourself?
I think when I look back at those experiences, because I didn't have that exposure early on, I think it was the best way to do what I did. I don't feel like I did the same thing every single internship, and I think that's something that I'm happy about. I do wish, like, I think naturally I'm a very creative person. I do wish I had like given myself time to like explore some of those things outside of finance or like business or economics. That's one thing that I wish I did, but I think at the time, like, money and job and like that was like my main concern. And so there's like, it's like a 50-50 answer.
Got it. No,
So it seems like throughout these internships that you did, and they are a little bit different here, right? But it's kind of seeding into what you're doing now, right? So you're talking about like working with small businesses, helping them set up.
Yeah.
Did you find a lot of fulfillment in that? Like helping like a small mom and pop shop, like figure out these things that to you may come naturally, but for them, like, oh my goodness, this is incredible.
100%. Growing up in Queens, you're like constantly surrounded by all these people who are like, you know, taking their like creative talents and like unique skill sets and turning it into businesses. And so I always had like a very deep appreciation for small businesses growing up because I saw a lot of my family and like, you know, that's for a lot of immigrants, I feel like that is the way out. Like, oh, you have a small business and like that becomes your form of like, you get to pursue your passion but also make money through it. And so I have a lot of respect for it. I also think that's also how I ended up getting a job at Google, because one of my volunteering experiences at when I was still in college was with this thing called Community Leadership Program at Google, and that was helping small businesses essentially, like, this was like what, 2015, 2014. So Google Maps was like more of it wasn't like as established as it is now. And so it was like helping these small businesses get online, create businesses through Google. And so like it was a very rewarding experience to like see the person, you know, with like small businesses, it's not just about, oh, you're helping a corporation get bigger. It's like you are seeing the person you get to help, and like it's like a more rewarding experience.
Yeah, and you know, helping local businesses helps the local economy far more, right? One of the things that you had mentioned, so you went and studied economics, correct? So, but you mentioned that you tend to be more creative. When did you learn that you were a creative person? And when you say creative also, could you help, like, what does that mean to you?
I think it just means like where my interests lie and like how I think about the world and like what I enjoy doing. I think even when I was in school, I didn't end up completing it, but my minor, if I had done 2 more classes, would have been art history. I've always enjoyed art ever since I was a kid, and just like painting, drawing, whatever it is. And so in the more traditional sense, I've always known that side of me has existed, but I didn't really ever think it could be like a profession or something that I could pursue. And so I think I've seen more of that skill set definitely as I was building LemonJuice. Like I just didn't realize I had all these skill sets in me, or like the ability to do certain things or think about problems in such a way, until I was put in a situation where it's like, okay, you have all of these things to think about. You're the only person who understands all these different pieces. Like, how are you going to turn that into something? And so that's something that like I have been able to do more through LemonJuice.
Do you have like any like artistic way to like express currently? Like, have you like started dabbling back into painting now that you've,
actually,
like,
I've
discovered
always
it?
like it's like I go back and forth between painting and not painting. My sister moved into like the space recently, and she was like, oh, can you like make me, she like commissioned me to make a painting for her. And so that was like, I was like, oh, like, yeah, I forgot I like used to be really good at it. And so I did one for her. And then that just like, I also have a 3-year-old niece who like loves like using my old paint stuff. And so painting with her has like brought that back on, but I forgot how much I loved it. And like I'm like finding my way back into it.
That's awesome.
Do you find that doing some of those activities like spark different parts of your brain and help with like, you know, like the analytical side as well? Like what's your thoughts on that concept?
I feel like that part of me has always been there. So I can't say like, oh, it sparks a different part, but I do think that my friends always tell me this. They're just like, oh, you think about things in such sometimes it's like a weird or like unique way, but
Colorful.
I do think, colorful way. I'm pretty sure someone has used that word before. And I think it comes from like having these very like diverse interests, which includes like painting and like art and also like math and like physics, whatever it is. But I think sometimes I feel like a crazy person in my head because like I have all these like different like things.
You're not alone. Trust me.
I'm sure. Like if
what's the meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's like pinning things onto the map? He's like, guys, just listen. It's just like huge big conspiracy theory, but it's all connected.
That's what it feels like in my head all the time. So yes, I do think it sparks different parts of like problem solving, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a firm believer in that as a concept as well, because it's like there's so much that you can learn from different types of skill sets and trades and industries and perspectives, right? I just think like if you're always just thinking about one hyper focused thing at all times, like you do have to focus, especially if you're building a startup. But like stepping away and just playing a game of basketball or like just stepping away and just like listening to some poetry or whatever you're doing, right? Or playing some music. I find so much value in those things. And then it's like, oh, that relates to this and this. Because like I feel like at our core, we're like connective tissues. And like getting out of the mundane routine is like, you have to find those, you have to go out of your way actively to find like how you can integrate the creative aspects into your life.
100%. I don't know, I'm sure like everyone has gone through this, but like in those moments where you just like feel like there's like a huge slump and you're like everything just feels the same and like you need a way out of it, I think it's always like doing something completely different, whether it's like going outside to play a basketball game, painting, like trying a new activity. And I think that's we're just like, as humans, I don't think we're conditioned to like constantly do the same thing every day. Like we all have those parts to us where like we need to go and explore like other things. Like I think we're naturally like curious beings.
Yeah, we spoke with brother Mustafa, and like, you know, he focuses on people changing careers, and one of the things that he kind of highlighted is like, you know, back in the day when we talk about the Renaissance eras or like the Islamic golden period, like a lot of these times, some of the experts, they were good at multiple things, right? Whether it be math, physics, medicine, arts, music. It's the intersection of all of these things that really spark you to keep on going on other areas, right? So one thing I'm kind of curious on is that you are very much driven. You kind of mentioned that you're driven by the prestige of things at a certain point when you're in your younger years. And what changed going from like college when you're kind of pursuing these prestige elements and of course landing in Google? When did that opinion, is that different now? And if so, when did your foundation on that reality start shifting a bit?
It's something that I struggle with. So full disclosure, the reason I got laid off Google 22 years ago.
22 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years
22 years ago.
Yeah, I was
I'm
like, whoa.
I was, no.
I was like, girl, what's your skincare
infant,
routine? I need to know.
I was an infant. No. But to your point about like how I thought about it, I think I don't know if I would have done like what I am doing now if I hadn't gotten laid off. It was something that like I had been thinking about for years, but Google was comfortable. I love my job. I love my team. I was there for 8 years. Like, you know, I was getting promoted. I was doing all these things. And all of a sudden, like 12,000 people get laid off. And I don't even know if I would have like gone this route if like so many people hadn't reminded me that like a couple months ago, one of my really good friends got laid off before I got laid off. And when he got laid off, I was like, you know, if this had happened to me, I would take my severance, I would create my own business, I would do all these things that I've always wanted to do. It's like a sign from God. And then when my layoff happened, my friend was like, do you remember when you said this to me so months ago? And I was like, because like anyone that knows me, like they were right. Like it's something that like anyone that's like that knows me knows that I have talked about doing my own thing for many years. I just like never had the courage to leave like a big name like Google. And I take it as like a sign from God that like this was something that, you know, God made it really easy for me to do with like the severance package, and just like it's not something that it wasn't something that like I felt bad about. I think if it wasn't like a 12,000 person layoff, like I would have been like, did I do something wrong? Was I not good at my job? And like the way that it happened, I always thank God for it, because I'm just like, I feel like the thought of being on this path had been in my head for many years. And like, you know, when like Allah makes something happen for you and like lays out that path, my family was really supportive about it. Like the idea was always there, and it was just about like making it happen. And so, yeah, that was it kind of, I'm still struggling with it, but like, it's, yeah.
Well, I'd like to back up a little bit. So you were at Google for 8 years.
Yeah.
What was kind of your role? You mentioned you had been promoted a couple of times. What was kind of the role that you had there, as well as some of the skill sets that really exemplified kind of some of the things that you're doing today?
Yeah. My roles at Google were a little bit different. So when I first started, I was part of a finance and strategy rotation program for 2 years. And so I would do a rotation every 6 months. It was like a post-grad program. And through that, I got to learn about like different like parts of Google. I got really interested in like data science and analytics, and so decided to lean more into that skill set. After 2 years was where I ended up, after the 2 year program, the team that I was on for 6 years. It was called Global Commercialization and Strategy. And basically what we did was we helped some of the biggest, it was a portfolio of like 40 of the biggest advertisers within Google. And we basically did this thing where we helped enable their display and video spend via like analytics, and helping them figure out how to grow, and like bespoke like programs that would help them attract the clients or the customers and like build their brands out in a certain way. So a lot of it was like strategy, data science, but within those 8 years, like aside from my traditional role, I think Google is amazing, and my team was amazing, because like even at Google, like I was the same person where like I had all these like random interests, and we have this thing called 20% programs. And so I took advantage of that. One of the things, or two of the 20% programs that I did, was within Area 120, which is Google's internal incubator. Startup incubator. So like internal Googlers can like start a company. The first one that I worked for was a thing called Gelanto. And so they were basically setting up like an informal jobs marketplace in developing countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal. So that was like my first exposure into startups and just
that entire realm.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit more? Can you summarize exactly what they were doing? They were creating a job marketplace for
the informal job marketplace. And so in those countries, there was a huge market for like painters or people who like, just like, I'm trying to think of like what those informal jobs were.
Like TaskRabbit jobs almost? Like contractors, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the way that they would find jobs was just like via word of mouth. And the way that they would get paid is like in a very like unstandardized way. And so they created like a whole platform where you could sign up for jobs or learn about jobs via text or phone calls, versus like just like making it a little bit more tech focused. And it actually ended up getting folded into Google Jobs. So now it's a part of Google Jobs. So that was the first thing. And then the second one was helping figure out how to commercialize our quantum tech. And so that was like a completely new area for me, but I just thought like what was happening in like the quantum area was like very interesting. And so I reached out to someone from the team and I was like, hey, like, what are you guys doing? And it ended up turning into a 20% project about how to commercialize that tech. And like, we basically did a lot of partnerships with some of the portfolio companies within my like normal team, and like built out some like research partnerships, etc. And so that was like a very cool experience. But I think I bring all that up because I feel like that helped me a lot in terms of like thinking about like the new technologies and just like how to take things that weren't necessarily fully baked out and like how do you make money from it? How do you like connect it to other things? And yeah.
Could you briefly explain what the 20% thing is at Google?
Yeah, so the 20% project is basically you get to spend 20% of your time with any other team. your manager has to approve it. They have to like, it has to be like a fit, but you basically, Google commits to letting you spend 20% of your like work week with a completely different team than your like traditional team.
Gotcha. So would you say that was kind of like your first time exploring the entrepreneurial world a little bit more, or did you work on, I don't know, did you make, at least for me in middle school, I made wands like Harry Potter and sold that.
Yeah.
But like, did you have any sort of, it was quite profitable. I got detention. So did you ever get the chance to do anything entrepreneurial when you were like before your corporate or in college?
Yeah. So the first one was the virtual enterprise thing that I told you about. So our virtual business was a magazine, and so it was called Vireal Magazine. It was like a team of 30, and we would have to figure out like what we were going to publish, who we were going to use to advertise on the platform, and you'd have to like connect with other entrepreneurs, like other things. It was actually really cool because we had trade shows, like international trade shows. You would have to go up and like sell, like pitch your product.
So that was like
okay. Yeah, and I realized I was like good at selling. As long as I was able to like practice the pitch a little bit, I was like, oh, this is something that I like, a skill that I didn't realize that I had. And so that was my first ever experience into it. For our capstone, to be able to graduate with that distinction, you had to do a capstone. My capstone project was it was like a women small business mentorship program. And so that's what I helped build. And I partnered with the SBDC, which is where I was interning, to be able to do this. We had like a whole panel and like a day where like a lot of small business owners in the New York area came. We had some like really great mentors come, and like they developed lifelong partnerships. So yeah. So
it's very interesting. As you explain your background and your history, right, leading up to the start of LemonJuice, it's like you can kind of see the sprinkles of like some of these things, right? Like even that first 20% Google, I think 20%er is what they call it. Yeah. So 20%er is like that first company you work for. It's like very similar job market-esque marketplace, in an emerging industry, and then you have like the sprinkles around it. So, and then fast forward, you're continuing to gain some exposure and experiences at Google, and then you get the unfortunate news that, hey, like, I'm going to be having to depart from Google. What was like that transition like, and how did it lead to like the start of LemonJuice? You had mentioned that at this point you already have been thinking about starting something for a very long time. Does that mean that you already had like some roadmap, some planning, or like what did that really look like, and how did you bake it into something real?
I think I had an inkling of what I wanted to do, just because I had seen so many people in my own community, and just like I was helping my sister plan a wedding, and
which is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and especially if you're like, I think the worst part about planning a wedding is like reaching out to people and being like finding the vendors. I don't know if like that's a process that you guys have ever like gone through, but like reaching out on Instagram, like asking people if they know about like certain vendors, or being like, how is this person actually good? How much do they cost? What is the availability? It feels like a very archaic process. And so when I was doing that for my sister, I was like, why does this feel like I'm in like the pre-Craigslist era? Like, I'm a tech person, and like everything is like usually like automated, and I'm like, or like automatic at least. And me and my sister had like joked about it, and we were like, there needs to be a platform to be able to find these people. And so I was already kind of thinking about it. I just like hadn't gone ahead with doing. And then after the layoff, like I took some time to travel and just like do my thing, but just explore what I was actually interested in. And I started talking to people about like, started seeing more people who are going through that problem, started researching the gap, and I was like, oh, this is like, I think there's like a $2 billion industry of like social media sellers. And as I told you all, that when I was at Google, like I think I helped some of the largest brands in the world grow, and I was just like, there's so many small businesses, and like tech can do so much for them, but like no one really cares to build for them. Even these big companies, it's all about like, how do you get them to spend more on ads, or like how do you build this like very complicated solution for them? And even now, like when I speak to investors or just like people in the industry, like people are like, are you sure you want to build for really small businesses? Like there's so many things, like, and there obviously are a lot of challenges, but I think I always saw an opportunity to take tech and like help those smaller folks who are constantly forgotten about, especially now with like AI and all these things. And so, yeah.
What's been like, have you ever received pushback from like trying to help some of these businesses?
Yeah, all the time.
How is that? Because, when I did marketing in college for like Facebook ads or Google AdWords, things like that, dental clinics, chiropractor offices. It's hard to help someone who wants help, but at the same time is refusing your help.
Yeah.
Right? How do you navigate that?
I'm still figuring it out. I think that is one of the biggest challenges here, because with a lot of these smaller businesses, they are very like established in how, or not established, but like stuck in like the way that they run business in the like historically. And it's always been like, oh, well, like DMs are kind of working for us. Like Instagram does what we create content. I think you have to show them that there's a way to do it better. But that education part is something that I definitely overlooked in the early days. And I was like, yeah, people are just going to get it. Like, it's obviously, it makes sense. Like, you need to be advanced. But through like content and just like explaining to people, like, look what's like, I think now because of the rise of AI, when I was first started doing this, like ChatGPT, all these things, like people like didn't really understand. And now with the rise of AI, everyone is concerned about like the rise and like how tech is going to take over things. And so people are more open to listening about it, but it is like a challenge to be like, no, like, do you like, this is what's happening this is why other like businesses are doing this much better, because they're taking advantage of these solutions versus like you could just like save so much time if you didn't. I think save, like figuring out like what those key things are. Like, it's not always about like save money, it's about like save time, make your life easier, more secure. So like figuring out what those key phrases are, and we're still in the process of doing it, but yeah.
I can definitely understand that like education is, it's probably one of the most difficult things, because what it inherently means is that your target audience, or whoever your potential customer is, you have to spend a lot of time with them to get them to where they are, to where they need to be in order to be the buyer or the person that you can, even though they might be, you might be a value add, getting them to that buyer journey process is definitely a significant challenge I think a lot of startups face. One of the things that I think is interesting, or maybe before I go into this question, just for the sake of the audience, maybe if you can give a little bit of a summary of what LemonJuice does, and where you are with that journey today.
So today LemonJuice is a platform that's very similar to, like, think of like an Etsy, but it's a little bit more technologically advanced, and we're focusing on creators or vendors who provide a service in real life locally. So our key audience right now is the wedding and event service industry. And so anyone from like mehndi artists to photographers to entertainers to makeup artists, they're all on our platform. And the idea is that instead of spending all this money on ads or developing a website, then you have to figure out SEO, etc. You just you get a listing page similar to like Yelp or Etsy that has all your key information. You can make bookings through the platform. And one of our key features is that, especially within like the cultural audience, like the South Asian audience, when you're looking for a vendor, there's a lot of nuances to like them understanding your culture or like what exactly you're looking for. So we have an AI chat called Lolo that's trained on cultural nuances. And so basically you can go into Lolo and be like, hey, like I need like a halal vegan whatever cake, or like I need someone who works with my skin tone and like acne prone skin as a makeup artist. So they help, like Lolo helps you find those vendors, and you can book it directly through our platform.
That's very interesting. I think, so going back to the education piece, right? Like I think this definitely sounds like it was a major challenge and still remains to be. With the advent of AI, I think it kind of fundamentally changes every small business. Everyone's like, how do I do this better, right? Like, and if I don't, like someone else is going to be using some of these tools. So I think in the advent of every serious player of your market, right? They're like, okay, I have to find the right tools, and maybe that's where they're now finally finding someone like maybe now they're a little bit further along that buyer journey. Is that what you've been seeing in terms of the implications of AI as well?
100%. When I first like started talking to people about LemonJuice, it was 2 years ago, and I think AI was like starting, but it wasn't as like
where it's now.
Enough of a household concept as it is today. Like today, like even my dad like is like, oh my god, ChatGPT. But I think now people realize that if you don't capitalize on it or like figure out how to use that to grow your own business, like you're just going to be left behind. I think even folks like in like high tech roles are like concerned about how AI is going to take over their jobs. And so even it trickles down to like small businesses too, where they're like, oh, we're going to fall behind. And so it's an easier sell because now people are looking, like anything with AI becomes an automatic, like, oh, I need to like
look into this.
Yeah. And so it helps that we have that.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the things that's interesting is like, I don't know if this is a fair summarization, but would you say like LemonJuice is like a two-sided marketplace?
Yes.
You're connecting vendors with potential buyers. You have picked this niche of like wedding engagement kind of industry. I mean, building a marketplace is one of the most challenging things that you can do. It's like a chicken and egg game.
Yeah.
It's like trying to find vendors and consumers at the and users at the same time.
Yeah.
Because problem is that if you get too many vendors and there's like not enough traction or volume of traction, so traction isn't enough, is you have to have enough volume. They're going to be like, maybe we don't spend a lot of marketing budget or spend or whatever here. And then same time, if you have a bunch of users who come onto the platform and they're like, oh, there's not really a lot of vendors. So it's like constantly like you have to kind of be at this equilibrium. It's a challenge.
It is a challenge.
Yeah. So like what was kind of the approach that you had in terms of like, did you take like a phased approach of how you wanted to like make sure those numbers were relatively, beneficial for people? Or was it just kind of trial by fire? We'll see how it goes. Like what was kind of your thought process through that journey?
It was definitely, I think with the chicken and egg problem, like it is just trial and error. Like you just have to like see what sticks and what doesn't. And so for me, I was like, how can I add value without who can I add value for without having the other, like without getting the other part in there, if that makes sense. Like there's part A, which is like the vendors, part B, which is the customers. And so I realized that for vendors, they had a set of challenges that I could help solve for without even getting the customers there. And that was like, do you want to spend $30 on a website and then spend like another $100 on SEO optimization and then figure out like how to get that in front of people? The design of the website, like the hosting, etc., like was a very expensive cost. And reviews has been like one of our biggest things, where for a lot of these vendors, they wanted to showcase their reviews. What they were doing was like, it was like a highlights thing on their Instagram. And so we used that as like, hey, we can help give you a space for you to display your reviews, your pricing. And even if we don't bring the customers, you already have a large audience that is like ending up on your social media page. And so this makes it easier for you to convert that, like, it's like that lower funnel conversion of like, people now have this, all the key information points that they need to be able to convert. You're already bringing the people to your page. And so that was like our initial way of looking at it. And what we realized that small businesses have really strong relationships with their customers, and so they're more likely to bring on the customer themselves by being like, hey, can you leave me a review, can you share my like profile with this person? And so that's the way that we thought about it after a lot of trial and error, and it's been working that way. And so we're just honing in on that a little bit more.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense if I think about it in context, because like you are a marketplace, but at the end of the day, like in order to get that initial penetration, what you've said is, hey, maybe we just start with just a web page where they can just view, right? Exactly. And they already own the relation, or they have a lot of control of the relationship structure. So, but the thing with that really is interesting and fascinating about this is like, there's very few things that people spend a lot of money for. I mean, it depends on who you're talking to, but like in general, like for most people, weddings is definitely a very like high price ticket item in someone's life, right? Yeah. Like, I know we all have different feelings and approaches about it, especially two guys. But in general, like if you look at it purely from like lifetime value of a customer, right? There's so much like spend that happens in there. So, and the likelihood of, if you're a customer for a Mehndi artist for your a potential event, then you also are probably going to be purchasing makeup, or you're also going to be purchasing other things. So kind of this cross-pollination aspect that's kind of inherently baked in. So it doesn't really matter where they're coming from, whether they're coming from the customer channel or they're coming directly to your site. Exactly. As long as you have this kind of, that's kind of an interesting moat. Yeah. Do you think that there are other competitors that are, I'm not very familiar with this space. Yeah. Are there a lot of other competitors, and you don't have to say their name or anything, but like, do you think that there are a lot of those other competitors that are doing something similar, and how does LemonJuice differentiate itself
Yeah, I
from
think
them?
in terms of competitors, if you think of key competitors in the wedding space, you have The Knot, you have, I think, like Wedding Wire, but a lot of those competitors focus on like, it is very like American, like it's not culturally aligned, and so where that audience ends up going is like they just have social media or they just have word of mouth, and it's a huge gap in terms of like all these folks exist but they just exist on social. They don't have websites. A lot of these folks are like have like hundreds of thousands of followers and like no website, so you can't even discover them unless like the algorithm shows you them. And so I don't think there's a competitor that's like creating a space for these smaller social media like businesses. A lot of our competitors like Zola, The Knot, Wedding Wire are focusing on like more established folks in the industry who have been there for like 10, 15 years. And that's not what our audience is looking for. They're looking for culturally specific. They're looking for different price ranges. And they're looking for people who are just like, they want variety. And that's not, and they want ease of like finding them. And so I'm not sure that there is someone else doing that right now.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of those competitors, they do fit into one particular niche, which is generally like more Western based. Now, when it comes to expanding your offerings, right? Like I think right now we've really highlighted like South Asian weddings mostly.
Yeah.
What's looking like the next spot? Are we looking at, Arab culture? Are we looking at, different type of cultures beyond just, the Mendis and the all those types of I can't even name you all the things that we have.
That's honestly true. We have so many different variations.
It's like collecting
and,
infinity stones.
Yeah, we are focusing on the South Asian. So initially when I was building LemonJuice, it was just like all of it. Like anyone who wanted to sign up. It wasn't even focused on like wedding and event. It was just like, I want to build like a smart search engine for these small businesses that exist on social media.
So when you're saying like any small business,
all
like
those
plumbers,
creatives,
okay,
creative people who are selling like a service or like a product that you could buy in person.
Gotcha.
Who are just on social media. And so we weren't like specific about who we wanted on the platform. But what I realized was that you can't do it all. And trying to do it all was just not working for us. And there was a natural traction towards like the wedding industry and the event industry. And so we leaned into that a little bit. I wanted to be very, very niche about who I was targeting so that I could at least capture like, I think the way to build a marketplace from everything that I read and like all the advice that I'm given is like be hyper specific or like hyper niche about who you're building for, capture that small market, and then it becomes, because of the network effect, like it becomes so much easier to capture other audiences. I think in terms of like what those other audiences would be, it could be like, okay, now we move vertically into different cultures or different regions, or it could be like we expand and we go beyond just wedding and events. I don't know what that next step looks like because I'm still trying to build this like small, I'm still trying to capture that small market. I'm a big data person, and so I think I'm very open to seeing like where there's natural traction and like who is interested and like who's on our social media, who's commenting, etc., and like letting that be the decision making factor. But currently I don't know.
So how are you guys making money right now? Is it more so when a customer books an event and then you get a little bit of cash back, or is it the business paying every month to be on there? Like what's like the structure?
So the structure right now is that a business pays a listing fee of $9.99 a month to be listed on the platform. What they get in return is a listing page that showcases their services, their gallery, their customers can message them and book through the platform. They can do like it creates like automated invoices, a place for them to manage their bookings. But that's the only payment that we're taking right now. We do have some like really cool partnerships coming up with bigger businesses who want to like capture the audience that we've built. And so we are thinking more about like, okay, how do we expand our revenue beyond just like the marketplace? So one of our partnerships coming up is with Engine. I don't know if you all know Engine.
I'm not familiar with it.
I feel like it came up in conversation at some point the last 3 days. That's why.
It's fine to like talk about, but
Yeah.
Engine is essentially, it's kind of like booking.com, but it's for group bookings. I think they're valued at like $3 billion now. But basically they do group bookings for hotels, and so they want to be able to do that for weddings. South Asian weddings have a large, like, people need hotels, they need to book venues, and so they have like an automated process for how you can do that through the platform. And so we're doing a really cool partnership with them so that, our customers can have like an end-to-end experience of like, you come onto our platform, you find find your vendors, you book them, and then all the way up to like, okay, now you need like hotel room blocks. How do you do that in an automated way and in like a cost efficient way? And so we're partnering with them to be able to do that through our platform.
So let's talk about partnerships a bit, because as a growing business, and did they reach out to you? Like, how did that look like? Did you feel, because I feel like when you're having someone, I guess, big and mighty come your way, right? Do you felt like you're at a disadvantage? How do you structure a relationship and a partnership that is beneficial to both and not being taken advantage of?
100%. I am pro partnership. Like, I do not get scared of big partnerships because that's like what I was doing before. And I'm like, yes. They reached out to us because of social media. I think like strategic partnerships manager saw something on social media and was like, oh, like, hey, I think this would be a good fit. We started talking. I think it is the way that they presented the opportunity was very like mutually beneficial. I think it's also about like, does it align with the value that we want to provide to our customers, to our vendors? Is there an opportunity here for everyone to win? Not just them, but like LemonJuice, our vendors, our customers. And so it was very much aligned in all aspects of it. So that's why it made sense.
So for you right now, with this partnership coming up, that seems, inshallah, is a huge growth accelerator. You kind of mentioned a bit back of this battle between, I guess, I forget the proper word, but like the status, right? Like of Google and things like that. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that, not to make it a therapy session.
No.
But because I think it's something we all kind of struggle with, especially when we're doing our own venture, right? And if you're leaving any brand, any established brand, because you kind of mentioned the fact that, and the golden handcuffs exist everywhere in different ways, right? We all want healthcare, so welcome to America. And so, can you reveal a bit more as to why you still feel a little bit of this desire of a big brand and as an entrepreneur?
I'm not gonna lie. I will say when they reached out, I was like, I looked into who they were and I was like, whoa, like this, it did feel like validation.
Yeah.
I think especially when you are building your own company or brand, it's kind of just like any validation is great. Like anyone saying good job or like, oh, we think what you're doing is great is like, whether it's a big company or a small company, it's great. But when it is a big company and it's someone that like, is established, I can't imagine it. Like, I don't know if there's a person out there who's just like, oh, it doesn't matter if it's small or big, like give me whatever is going on inside. But I just think that like, I don't know. Let me pause here and think about this. I don't know. I think leaving Google, one of the hardest things was like, when you have a manager, when you have like a traditional job, you're constantly being validated every day, right? Where it's like, oh, you finished this task, great job. Oh, you're getting promoted. You're on you finished this project. And I think leaving Google and doing my own thing, I was the only person there to validate myself. I am like a solo founder as well. And so getting that validation from a bigger brand was kind of like, oh, after 2 years of like doing this, like here's like something to show, like someone recognized your work. And I don't know if it was just like the brand name or just like the fact that it was validation.
Yeah, I mean, I think both things can be true at the same time, right? And so I think it's like, where do you get that validation from, right? And so it's like, if it's someone close to you and dear to you, someone you really respect and value, that validation will probably mean more to you than some random person that you have no relationship with, just generally speaking, right? So I guess when it comes to being a solo founder, which is, I think for our podcast, quite rare. I don't think we have a lot of solo founders. What was your decision-making process on being a solo founder, and how did you come to that conclusion? It's like, okay, I'm gonna do this by myself.
I think, yes, officially I am a solo founder, but I think I am, alhamdulillah, very, very blessed with like having a community that like often feels like I have a really big team behind me, from like my like family, my sisters, to my like best friends who are always there to like just be like, oh, like whether it's validation, whether it's showing up to do a video or like admin tasks in the, like, I don't know if I would have been able to do it for as long as I have been. It's not even that long, but like if I didn't have that community of like people who are always ready to help. And so I think knowing that and like feeling like I had a team, and like because they were a part of it from the beginning too, it's like, it's kind of like you already have a team and you're like, oh, I want to like make these people proud because they're also like a part of the journey. And so it feels like, it doesn't feel like I'm a solo founder.
Do you feel like you're going way too fast or not fast enough? Like, what does it feel like?
I think it feels like I'm not going fast enough. I always feel like there's more that I could be doing. There's, you know, it's like you do all this work and you're just like, I'm doing so much more than what I was doing when I had like a 9-to-5, but I have like the paycheck, you know, is not the same. And it's like,
the math is not
mathing. And so it always feels like there's more that I could be doing and I could be going faster. And that is something that I like constantly am challenging or like dealing with, but I'm trying my best.
That's not something abnormal though. I mean, that's definitely the case, right? It's like taking more risk up front, and if you like consistency, then being a startup founder is not for you,
no,
right?
Exactly.
Like you have intense periods of highs and intense periods of low. And I think the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that know how to manage those ups and down in an equilibrium fashion, right? Like, can you like be tempered about how great this is, and can you be like optimistic about how bad this was, right?
Yes.
And you have to turn a dial. You're always at the brink of failure.
You constantly have to be in a delulu state.
Yes, exactly.
So it's not abnormal at all, and if anything, like it really does test your limits. But that's why, like, when it does really strike and hit, it's like, you know, that's when it's successful. Now, one thing that I wanted to ask about is in terms of like the journey. Oftentimes, like people are looking for advisors or people that they can talk to, whether that's like receiving customer feedback. And it sounds like you do a lot of that closed loop. Are there things that you've heard that you've received advice about that was just like the worst advice that you could have received? Like, and what's an example of that for you?
At some point, I was thinking about venture funding, and so when I was talking to investors, I would say about like 50% of the investors that I spoke to were just like, why are you building for such small businesses? Like, we're not like, these are people who are like, oh, we want to invest in like people-focused companies or like things that are having impact in the world. And a lot of the feedback that I got was just like, this is not going to succeed because you're trying to solve for such a small, like micro businesses cannot be like, it's hard to do anything with scale with micro businesses. And I don't know if this is like answering your question, but I think I was very much discouraged from like building for the group of people that I am building for by many people, and constantly like having to, I still question it. I'm like, you know, like, is this the right path? Am I doing the right thing? But I think being questioned about that was probably like the worst. I don't know if it's advice, but
I'll say, I think I know where you're going with this. I'll say something from the venture capital space, right? The environment there is hockey stick or die. And so it's like, and the reason for that is like, there's this very famous book by Scott Proctor. He I think that's his name. But he was the managing partner of Andreessen Horowitz. And he basically talks about this in his book. I know we're not like big fans of Andreessen Horowitz, but in terms of a startup, no, I don't think we have to cut it out, honestly, because I think in terms of like the startup philosophy, you have to understand, if you're going for trying to be a venture-backed company, you have to understand the way some of the mentality thinks. And so like he related it very close to baseball, and I'm not very familiar with baseball, but with this analogy, what he was basically saying is like, we invest in 10 companies. 8 of them are going to fail and go to 0, and we're okay with that. The 9th one is maybe going to 1x or 2x the return.
Yeah.
We still consider that a failure. The 10th one needs to be a home run. And so it's not about if you're profitable.
Yeah.
It's about what was the magnitude if it's the hitter.
Yeah.
And so the 20x, the 30x that you get needs to make up for all the other losses. And so so whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that's the philosophy that a VC invests in. That's why they're taking so many bets on companies. And so what does that mean for you as a founder that's accepting that capital, is that even if you turn the dial on profit, it's like, for them, it's like, how can I get you to the next stage? If I'm at seed, how can I get you to sell you to the Series A?
Yeah.
If I'm at Series A, how can I sell you to the Series B? And that is like a hyper growth stress environment, right? I will say that VCs, depending on who you talk to, you have to be very careful, because a lot of the VC people may not be operators.
Yeah.
And so they're only going to look at things from their context and lens. I'm not familiar with your industry or your space, but I will say that, like, if you are getting people, if you are getting customers to pay for your product, and your customers are saying, hey, this is something that I think is value, maybe you can work on the business model and figure out the journey, and it might take some time to do that. But the core is like, is there value in what I'm creating? Am I providing a real service?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that is trending in yes, not even yes, if it's trending towards yes, it's continuing to worth pursuing. At least that's my kind of opinion. Now, it might not be for that. Yeah. It might not be for that founder, or it might not be for that investor, but that's why you have to choose your investors. So I would say, like, for me, like, if you're a founder, you have to have, like, conviction in what you're doing. Yeah. You also have to lean on the data side. Yeah. But, like, you have to, like, manifest the reality that you're trying to create.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought that was some interesting insight.
What does, like, you're building in a space you keep defining as, like, super niche, or at least that's what the VCs are telling you, right? What does your vision of success look like for LemonJuice currently?
In, like, a perfect world, it would be the next Google for small businesses. So, like, inshallah. Like, you go onto our platform, you can search for any sort of small business that is local. We don't have big brands. And so based on what you are looking for, or what you're trying to buy, or like a service you're trying to get, you just go onto the platform and everyone is there. And so I think it levels, the goal is that LemonJuice is a platform that's going to level the playing field for these small businesses in the internet space, where they don't have to compete with all these big brands to get in front of their customers. We're spending like billions of dollars on ads, and so that they can pursue their passions and their, like, creativity, etc., and focus on their business and, like, actually creating, rather than just like, oh, like, how do we put more money towards ads or etc. So yeah.
The other question I had was going to be family, right? Pursuing entrepreneurship is an uncertain space, right? Especially as a like a zero generation American. How did your family, whether your siblings, your cousins, or your parents, after, leaving Google, what were they thinking about you pursuing being an entrepreneur?
Surprisingly, everyone was very supportive. Everyone from, like, my parents to my sisters to my cousins. I think my parents and my sisters, like, have always trusted my, like, thought process and, like, my ability to, make good decisions for myself. And so they trusted that, like, okay, if I see something here, there's potential. And I think up until the point of when I started LemonJuice, I was very, like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And, like, I checked off all the boxes. And this was probably the first time in my life where I was doing something where, like, I wasn't checking off a box. And I was like, oh, I'm doing this because it feels right. And when I told my mom about it, I told her through the lens of, like, oh, like, how I've been thinking about this. And I had the thought process, and I was like, I feel like this is a sign from God. And, my mom was like, oh, yes, this is a sign from Allah. Like, and so they've honestly been, like, way more supportive than I could have expected them to be. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's always a little scary because I think even if we have a history of being supportive with our family whenever we do something, it's a little bit scary. I think
100%.
we not necessarily assume the worst, but expect something coming, right? Something stopping you. Yeah, so I guess now, are you in a stage where you're growing the team, or is it still very solo?
I do have other teammates, or people that I've like brought on. We have a marketing team, we have some interns, we have a developer, but it is mostly like not me. And then I have a lot of help from those folks, but I would love to grow the team. I think there's just a lot more that I need to do before I get to a point where like I can grow it, inshallah soon. But
are majority of like your clients or people who is it mostly New York focused or across the country, or?
It is, I would say like 60% of our vendors are on the East Coast. And then we've had like a lot of other folks from that like initial period where we were just letting everyone on, that are from all over. I think I believe there's 15 cities, but the East Coast is like the dominant. Yeah.
What's been the best way to get more people onto the listing? Are you trying to stay localized to the Eastern area?
So this is like my like growth hack thing, but I will call up all South Asian vendors on the knot and be like, hey, like,
listen here,
everyone hates all of these vendors hate the knot. Like it is,
They do?
They all hate because they're spending so much money. On average, anywhere from like the minimum that I've heard is like $400 a month for like advertising.
What?
It's ridiculous. People are spending. There's so much money in this like industry. They're spending that, and they get like 1 or 2 leads from the knot. And so
that's
$400.
That's minimum. Some people are spending like $1,200. Like if you think of a photographer or like a videographer, they make like what, anywhere from like 10 to 15 from one engagement, right? Like one like wedding thing. And so even if you spend a couple hundred per month, you get one client from it. It's worth it. But they're just like, why am I spending this much money to get 1 or 2 leads from like a platform that is supposed to be for? And so we've like run ads where it's like, oh, get a free month for like better than the knot. Like that's the promo code. And so we'll call up a lot of these folks and be like, hey, we have this new platform.
Plus we cater directly to your target
We
audience.
cater directly to your target. And so we'll do that. But a lot of it is just like via word of mouth and like showing up at like community events. Like in New York, there's this organization called Malika, and they host a Ramadan like night market. And so at some point in the initial, like maybe like last year, we had a stand for LemonJuice, and we had a vendor come and like sell some of their like biscuits. We were giving out free lemonade, and it was just like, hey, like this platform exists, telling people about it, going to like some of the folks there and being like, just like those like stuff like that, like showing up in communities and being like, hey, we are part of this community, this is what we're doing, and then using that to like get people to talk about us. And it's been working.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Well, Rafat, thank you so much for joining us today at the Caravan Podcast. Today we had Rafat from LemonJuice, founder here in New York City, a marketplace for cultural creatives or those who serve the wedding market in particular. So if you're interested in finding out, go to LemonJuiceClub.com. There you go. I'm glad I paused there for a second. Rafat, just like Khairan for joining us here again, and inshallah we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.